So my name is Shonda Kelly. And I'm a broker and an associate broker with Keller Williams. I'm here to teach about short sales. I'm excited to be here to move my knowledge and please, I talk a lot. So if you have any questions, just kind of jump in, ask your questions. I want this to be interactive as much as possible. If you have some scenarios that you're going through, questions you have, and I haven't addressed them, please feel free to ask. Okay? I'm going to go through what's going to seem like a lot of information. Again, if you want any of this, let me know and I can. Hi, how are you? Good, how are you? Good, thank you. So, does anybody know what a short sale is? Yeah. So the definition of a short sale is this. Not looking at the computer. There might be a little remote stick thing that's up there that might be easier. Are they in there? Like really? Yeah. That's no. You're very focused on chicken. All right, let me grab it on. I'll be right back.
How's everybody doing? By the way, this always happens when I walk into a training and some technology gets messed up. I don't know if it's my electromagnetic frequency, the universe, but this does happen.
How's your boy? I just talked to Karen as the winger. Good.
I can't think that's using for me.
Good.
But my teammate, now they're like, dude, you just have to get.
Yeah, get it that way.
Yeah, they had this all ID just that how you set up. Upload.
Definitely.
He's going to talk about that.
Yeah, go for it. Thank you. Okay, so what is a short sale? Short sale is a debt situation that occurs when a property owner sells their home for less than the amount owed on the mortgage. The seller typically owes more than the home's current market value, creating negative equity. So, in plain words, you have to sell it for less than what's owed for it on the bank. Okay. It requires bank approval. You can never do a short sale of any kind without the bank approving it. Okay, we're going to go through that process as well. Deficiency considerations. When you're talking about a short sale, when you're looking at a short sale situation, you have to look at what's owed on for the mortgage and any second liens or any judgments that are attached to the property. Okay, some of the stuff you can find out directly from the owner. Other things, I did a short sale one time and the owner gave me the mortgage balance and a second lien, but forgot she did a DSHA loan, which was a second lien as well. It's an equity line. So those things will catch you at the end. I would highly suggest if you do a short sales on a high level that you connect with a attorney and then have them run a title search for you. Title search is going to cost you somewhere between $50 and $75. It's a great investment for you to do. Again, if you're doing these on a high level, to ensure that what you're doing effectively represents what the seller owes. Okay, you don't really want to get caught at the end of it with a third lien that you now have to negotiate through the process. That will make it much more difficult. Okay, so have a really good and honest conversation with them. Ask them those questions. When you purchased the house, how did you purchase it? Did you get a government loan, the SHA housing loan? A lot of buyers back in the day truly believed that those loans were grants, and they weren't. They weren't grants, they were loans. So that $15,000 grant that they thought they got is now a $32,000 judgment in 10 or 15 years later. Okay, so have those conversations with them, asking them about anything that they may have done. Okay, financial hardship is huge in a short sale. You can't just do a short sale because they owe less than what's on the mortgage. There has to be a financial hardship. And sometimes we have to get creative with what that hardship looks like. And you've got to ask all the questions. That doesn't necessarily need to be a hardship that happened today. It can be a hardship that happened 5 years ago that's still affecting them today. Okay? So ask the question, did you get divorced? Were you sick? Did you end up in the hospital? Did you have COVID? Did you lose your job? Were you out of work for any period of time? Establish the hardship with them. Okay? There has to be a hardship. The bank won't consider a short sale without some type of hardship that you have to present to them. Right? Hardships are, like I said, being sick, divorced, someone died. They will consider a short sale if the primary owner of the house died and you inherited it, so to speak, and you have to sell it. That's the hardship. The owner died, I've got this property, I can't do anything with it. So those considerations have to be made. Okay? Identifying a short sale, let's get rid of this. And have to recognize the signs of financial distress. So if you're talking to someone and you identify it as a short sale based on, when you do your listing presentations, you ask the owner how much they own the property. Okay. Before you go to the property, do you already have a general idea of what that house is worth? Right? We should all be doing it. When we're doing our listing presentations, I should go to the house with a general understanding of how much that house is worth before I get there. Right? And then I'm adjusting that number up or down based on condition, based on location. Maybe I've not been to this particular part of Newark or Wilmington, and I'm like, or, this is good, so I can up my value a little bit. So I should have a general idea when I'm sitting with the seller how much this house is worth. Okay, so sellers don't necessarily like to give you the idea of what their house is worth until you tell them what their value is. Okay, so this is a tough situation to kind of work through, but as you do them and you learn, you have to you just tell them, like, I think our market value at this point in time is probably somewhere between 385 and 425 is what I'm thinking, just based on what I'm looking at right here. But I want to finalize that by going through the house with you and moving forward with those numbers. So can you tell me what you owe on your mortgage? Right? Now, if they say we owe 380, you already know you potentially have a problem if you're not on the higher point. Okay? Do you have any second liens? Home equity lines? Have you pulled any equity out? DSHA funding? You gotta ask all these questions. Okay? And if they say no, then you may be good. And if they say yes, it just adds on to that number. Okay? You switch that conversation very quickly to, I think we may have a short sale situation based on your actual pay. Okay? I'm still here to help you. I'm a problem solver. I have solutions, and I'm here to help you get your house sold regardless of the circumstances in which we need to sell it. But I need you to understand that the aspect of a short sale and what that looks like as it pertains to you. Okay? So you're going to verify all the information with the seller, and then you're going to ask them at that point in time, or you're maybe at a second appointment at this point in time, because sometimes sellers, when you're telling them on the spot, that kind of throws them, right? If you keep encouraging and letting them know you're okay, we're okay, we can get through this process. I have effectively negotiated these. We have a team behind us that are there to assist. Let them know that you're there for them. Okay. What you ultimately want to walk out with, if you walk out with nothing else, is the loan documents. Okay. Meaning, can you give me a copy of your last statement? And you don't care how old it is, right? You really don't. It could be last month's loan statement. It could be last year's loan statement. You just need a copy of it in order to look at those numbers yourself. Okay. If you're sitting at the actual seller and you know this is a short sale situation, then you're going to tell them when you're on your way, please have your loan document available for me. We're going to go through that together to identify how the best way to move you forward. Okay. So that's one thing you want to definitely walk out with is their mortgage statement. Okay. So establish a short sale listing with the lender. So after you've done your listing, well, let me say this. You've done your listing appointment with the seller, right? And you're sitting there and you're telling them specifically this is a short sale. Okay. They're going to want to know, what are my avenues? What are my consequences for those? Okay. You're going to go through the whole thing with them. We're going to go through this step by step though, but there's one thing I want to point out here that we'll talk about later is pricing the short sale, okay? Let's assume we've already got that at this step, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later within the slides. So we've got the listing document signed, we have the price, we have everything done. You're sitting with them and you have to obtain seller's authorization, which is a form that you can either create or ask the bank, whoever the lender is there specific, some lenders have specific forms, like Bank of America, they have their own forms. They will not accept anything that you send in, nothing at all, right? So if it's Bank of America, you're gonna say, okay, I need you to, or you can do it, right? I have a copy of it because I've done so many of them, right? So I just keep a blank one. As you collect these things, keep them. This is Bank of America, this is Chase. You know, you understand what the process is in each bank, because each bank is a little bit different, okay? So you're gonna have seller's authorization filled out, which will require some personal information, right? Once you have that, you're gonna contact the lenders. And then once you contact the lenders, after you get the contract on the sale, you're gonna send it to the lender for evaluation. We're gonna go through that whole process. But that's really kind of the start to finish of the short sale with a ton of stuff in between, okay? This is a copy of an authorization form. Okay. So seller's full name, property address, city, state, zip, loan number, date. To whom it may concern, authorized representative. So that would be your name. Make sure you have your company name there. If you have a team, like I have Revolution Group, then it would be Revolution Group / Keller Williams. I want to put both of them on there because if I inadvertently send them something that just has Revolution Group on it, then they're like, who's this? I don't have authorization to speak to Revolution Group. I have authorization to speak to Keller Williams. Okay. So if you have a team name that you go by, then make sure you're putting both of those there. Your phone number, your email address. Okay. They're giving you authorization to speak on my behalf in all matters relating to my mortgage loan, access and review all information related to my mortgage loan, including but not limited to loan details, payment history, escrow, and other documentation. Negotiate terms, conditions, and any other matters relating to the mortgage. Discuss any potential loan modification, short sales, or related information of financial agreements. Submit and sign any necessary documents on my behalf regarding the mortgage loan. This one's a tough one. I don't do it. I will sign things at closing. Other than that, I'm not signing anything. But some banks want to see that you have authorization to act on their behalf as a whole. But I would tell the seller, I'm not signing anything in your name unless we go to closing and I do the closing documents if you can't attend closing yourself during. Okay. So that's again a requirement for some of the banks, and this is a standard form, right? You give them an expiration of this effective until. I usually put this out 2 years. Yep. I usually put this out for 2 years. And that's because short sales can be, I've done short sales in 30 days. And some of them have taken me 4 years to get done. Okay. And it really depends on the bank you're dealing with, the requirements they have, and if your seller is cooperative, right? And then you're going to have them sign it. So this is what an authorization form would look like, that you're going to sit down with them and you're going to go over and collect that. Short sale data collection, full name, phone number, email address, property address goes on the form. This is where that loan document comes into play. And a lot of these forms, to be quite honest with you, I fill out for them because they don't understand the language and the world in which we live, and they fill them out wrong. Okay. So I will sit and I'll have a full conversation with them and ask them certain things, and I'll keep that for the next slide. But this is when you're collecting the data, so you can use the data in order to complete some of these forms. This is necessary for the authorization form. It's necessary for the 710 form, borrower's identification form. So you have to have this at all times. When you call to get updates, they're going to ask you for the loan number, they're going to ask you for the borrower's name, and they're going to ask you for their social security number. Okay. You do have at least the last 4 to 5. So what I have accustomed my sellers who don't like to give out the whole social security number, which I don't blame them, I'll tell them you need to give me the last 5. Because some banks will require the whole thing. Some banks will say the 5, and I'll tell them, if I don't know which one it is, I'll tell them I'll start with the 5. And if they require me to have the whole number, I'll call you back. Okay. You need their monthly payment, their interest rate, their last payment date, their delinquent status, okay? This is just informational purposes. If they don't have it, then I don't necessarily care about it, other than this delinquent state. Are you delinquent? How far behind are you? Are we looking at a foreclosure in addition to the short sale? Are there steps that I need to take in order to get the foreclosure stopped? Because you can. If you have an offer in hand and the short sale and the listing is 30 or more days out from foreclosure, they will stop the foreclosure process in order for you to do the short sale. Okay? If the date's already scheduled. If the date is not scheduled, they won't schedule a date giving you the opportunity to do the short sale. But if the date is scheduled and you have a true date coming up in 30 days, then you call the bank, but at that time you have to have an offer in hand. Call the bank, tell them I have an offer. I need to submit it through the short sale process. They will suspend the date in order for you to review the short sale.
So if they're in pre-foreclosure, that you still have, that's still your window of opportunity.
Yes, so
Correct.
pre-foreclosure to foreclosure can take
Right.
anywhere up to 2 to 3 years. Okay, so a lot of times when you get a phone call and the buyer itself is, I need to sell, I just went into pre-foreclosure, I just went to foreclosure. Well, what does that mean? Did you get a notice that says we're starting foreclosure? And if they say yes, there is a ton of things they still need to do before they actually get to foreclosure, right? There is the bank has to file through the state of Delaware in order to claim that they're filing for foreclosure, okay? They have to actually establish the debt and the judgment here. So they'll send in documentation. When that documentation comes through, the state automatically will give you the opportunity for mediation. They can't, for a government loan, they cannot move forward without mediation. It is important that they take part in all of these steps, okay? Because on some governmental loans, such as FHA, if you don't do certain steps, they'll disqualify you for the short sale, okay? Let them go to the mediation. Tell them about your hardship. I'm selling the house, it's a short sale. They have to be flat-footed on that. They don't want to, if that's the case, if they don't want to remodify their loan, if they don't want to stay in the house, they just have to stay flat-footed on the fact that this is my hardship and I have to sell the house. You've done mediation, you've done your part, okay? All right? So delinquent status is vital. So you need to know if they've received any paperwork from the bank saying that they were going into foreclosure, and you need to know how far behind they are, right? If foreclosure won't start until they're at least 3 months behind, consecutive 3 months behind, that's when the bank can start foreclosure. They typically won't start sending out the documents to actually foreclose until you're somewhere between 6 to 9 months. They will threaten at 3 months. Well, they'll start threatening 2. They'll threaten at 3. They'll get more serious at 4. And then the documents will usually go out between 6 and 9 months. Okay? So that will give you a timeline as to how quick you need to move. Now, if they call you and they say, we've got foreclosure papers, we did modification, we didn't do modification, you then have to find out when the foreclosure date is. If there's no date established as of yet, but they have foreclosure paperwork, you're probably talking about anywhere between, I would say, 9 months to 45 days, just depending on how quickly the court can now get it on the docket.
So what if there is a date? Like, would they still be able to, like, would, yeah, if there-
100% if there's an offer.
so if
100%.
there's, as long as there's an offer,
Yes.
they can stop it.
Yes, 100%. So then if they say, I'm getting foreclosed on next month, then you've got to move like lightning. You've got to get all these documents collected, filled out, submitted to the bank, get it on the market. You do not need bank's approval to put the house on the market. The owner still owns the house. That's a misconception that owners have. They're like, well, I can't sell it because I'm going to foreclosure. You could sell it up until the day they come and tell you to get out. When the foreclosure has happened, you still own the house. So you have all the control as to what you do with the house. The bank has final say if it's a short sale, if they will accept it. But what you do to get there, they can all the way through the actual foreclosure date. They can sell and list the house. So what happens if you have a date is you're going to establish all this paperwork, you're going to get it on the market, and you're going to push really hard to get an offer. Because that's, once you have a date, the only way to stop foreclosure is with an offer.
What kind of offer? Like if a family member offered to buy the house for $100.
Nope, that's mortgage fraud. Family members cannot buy properties that are in distressed state.
Okay, now another thing, say they owe $100,000 on it, but the offer is only $50,000. Does it have to be over the amount that they owe?
No, so So let's talk about that. So when you're listing a short sale, you're gonna look at the market value of the house without anything wrong with it.
Yep.
You're gonna look at the market value. Market value of the house is 300,000, okay? Now, you've looked at this house, and this house is only worth 220, right? It is a hot mess. The bank does not care. The bank wants market value. So it's always best to try and do this before they have a court date, because there's a little bit of a game you have to play. Right? So market value is 300, and you know this house is not worth any more than 220. You're listing it for 300. Because you need to prove to the bank that you tried to sell it for what it was worth. You must prove to them that you tried to sell it for what it was worth. If you don't do that, short sale will not get approved. If you list it for 220 and the market value is 330, they are going to fight you tooth and nail and tell you you did not do any justice to protect their interest. Okay? So you're going to list it for the market value, right? And it has to stay listed for the market value, I would say anywhere between 14 to 30 days. Okay? And then you're going to chip at it. You're going to come down. 300,000 probably goes to 280. You're going to prove I tried to sell this house. Okay? And then when you finally get the offer in at 220, the bank is going to fight. And then you have to establish to the bank why the house is only worth 220. Okay? Because the bank's not going to do an evaluation of the property until you actually bring them an offer. They're going to do what's called a broker's opinion, a CMA. They're going to have one of us go out, and we're going to come back, and we're going to say, oh, that's 300,000. But I didn't see inside the house. I just saw the outside. I saw the location, and all looked good to me. So the bank is saying, well, we have this opinion that says it's worth this. The appraiser is the one that's going to go in and actually give the true value because of the condition, right? That's not going to happen until you actually have an offer, right? They're not going to allow that to happen when you have the offer because their CMA is different than what your offer is. So now you have to present to them and do this up front. You're going to have a contractor go in and you're going to have them give you a quote for the HV system that doesn't work. You're going to give them a quote for redoing the kitchen because they took all the cabinets out. You're going to get a quote for all of those things. Okay. You're going to document the location, right? And then you're going to document that this is a distressed property, right? So once you document all that information and you submit that with the offer, then that gives them less grounds to fight with you, but they're going to fight with you none the same. Okay. Yeah. 9 out of 10 of the times, if it's that far off what they think is market value, they're going to counter. And they're going to counter with something ridiculous. They're going to counter it like 290, 295. You're going to bring it back to the buyer. The buyers may come up, may not come up. And then you're going to present that to the lender. You're going to say, they're not willing to come up. Okay. The bank is absolutely willing to lose that offer. 100% willing to lose that offer. So then you're going to sit for a little bit longer and then you're going to drop it a little bit longer, and you might have to do all this all over again, right? Now, I have had situations where the buyer was very serious about buying the property and just sat and waited for that process, right? Mm-hmm. It may take another month or two for the bank to realize that that is a solid offer. And the buyer might say, you know what, I really do want this house. And although it's only worth 220, I'm going to pay 225, I'm going to pay 230. That's happened as well, okay? But it's a dance. Right? And it's a fine balance between the two, figuring out how to get them to meet in the middle, right? I always say I'm not a listing agent, I'm an agent, right? My job is to get you to the closing table. And in order to do that, I have to often look at the interest and the benefits of the buyer, right? My ultimate responsibility is to the seller, but if I'm not considering the buyer as well, then I'm not going to get the seller to the closing table. I can't tell you the number of deals I've had where listing agents are just like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm like, okay, but this is a legitimate problem that we have with my client who's the buyer. And if we can't resolve this, then your client, the seller, is not going to closing. Right? Right? So short sales is the same way. But now you have 3 parties. You've got the buyer, you've got the seller, you've got the bank.
So let's say, okay, so the house is listed at market value. It's truly not worth that. And the buyer's like, well, I just want it, and I just want to give them what they want for it. What happens when their appraisal happens? Like
the appraisal trumps the bank. The bank 9 out of 10 that time will back down from the appraisal. Only time I've seen where they won't will be like a conventional loan. They may argue that. They might say, well, we're just not selling it. It's better for us to foreclose on the property and take it back. Right? Okay. So depending, and that also too, depending on how much equity it is in there. I had one time a short sale where this woman had $200,000 worth of equity. And the bank did not care. They were like, we'll just take the house back. They didn't care. And it was a true short sale because of the condition and the location. It was just, it was bad. So it was a better position for the bank to foreclose on the property and take the equity and resell it than it was to do a short sale and eliminate the property.
So what ended up happening? Did they go into foreclosure?
The bank took it back. And I told her that up front. I said, you've got, if we could sell this for market value, you have but she did not take care of anything. None of the HVA system didn't work. The roof was leaking. It was bad. I don't know how the city didn't condemn it, right? And I said to her, the bank's never going to approve this because of how low the value is for market value. It behooves them to just foreclose on the property, fix it up, and take the value themselves.
Why wouldn't she just borrow from the equity herself and fix it up?
Credit screwed up.
That in part is
Go as cheap as you can.
I agree, and one thing I did not encourage with her or go into her was how the credit is a huge factor in refinance.
Right.
Right? So if you're behind your market, nobody's right. There's no way to pull.
But I'm just thinking, like, if they're going to take the house anyway, what do they have to lose?
I
You know,
agree.
especially if they want market value, why wouldn't they do what they can to try and get as close to that as possible?
And she didn't. Yes.
I'm just thinking, like, in that, given the situation, the mental stress of it all and all the craziness that's probably also going on, like, I can assume that they're just not, like, we have to sit with a professional that lives and breathes this to even,
Yeah.
so I can assume just the type of distress when you're speaking with and having them trust you is.
And please keep that in mind, because a lot of times when you're doing this, you've had sellers that have checked out. They've either checked out emotionally because they are so spent, like you said, or they've checked out emotionally because there's so much pain that's associated with this house that they don't care. I want gone. I want to be out. I want to be gone. Right? So you've got to balance that as well. Right? My husband always calls me a therapist, right? You're either a therapist or you're an attorney. Right? But you've got to be sure that you keep locked in with them and keep them pushing forward. Like, this is to benefit you. I do a lot of short sales where there's divorce situations, right? The wife hates the husband. The husband wants to murder the wife. I'm both their best friends. Both of them. He's a cheating bastard. Yeah, he is. She's a crazy lunatic. Oh, I mean, that's a rough word, but I can understand your pain, right? I sympathize with both of them because my job is to get the two of them on one accord in order to get the property sold, right? I can't take sides. Sometimes I want to, right? But I can't. So both of them have to feel comfortable and protected by me and my abilities, right? So you've got to be able to split yourself sometimes, right? That's hard as well. But you have to know emotionally where they are in order to keep pushing them forward, because short sales are not short. That was the dumbest name that could have ever been named, right? Because they're not, buyers like, I want a short sale. I'll be what? You need to be in the house for 45 days. I don't know what this listing agent's done. I don't know the preparation, because some listing agents, they don't do any of this preparation until they have an offer. I will tell you 100% that is the wrong way to do it.
Sounds like the wrong way.
I can't tell you the number of times I walked up on short sales and they were like, oh, well, I mean, the Lenders Bank of America, and this is how much they owe, but we haven't started anything yet. What? I don't understand. That start process can take 2 to 3 months sometimes, depending on the bank. Bank of America, one of them. They will make you jump through hoops. Okay? So other banks, the third party JP Morgan, they're a little bit faster. Right? But you start it the minute you know it's a short sale. You get all those documents. Okay? But knowing and understanding exactly where your client is key in order to keep in the table the transaction going forward.
Sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but I was looking at a short sale listing recently, and they had a third party company that was negotiating between the buyers and the bank. How does that work with the listing agent?
So if the position I'm coming from is you are the short sale negotiator, okay? I have never in my life hired a third party and I know who you're talking about. I've been doing this longer than they've been doing it.
Okay.
And I've done all this myself. The problem I have with some third party negotiators are within their contract, it says the buyer has to buy the property whether the appraisers or not. The buyer has to buy the property whether there's major defects on the home inspection or not. I am 100% against that. 100% against that. Because 9 out of 10, the bank doesn't fix the major defects. They'll take that into consideration as far as value is concerned, but they won't fix anything. Okay? So if there's something so major that the buyer really can't handle emotionally, physically, mentally, financially, they, even as a listing agent, they should have the right to back out.
Yeah.
Right? And then guess what that home inspection report does for me?
Helps
As a listing
you.
agent.
Yeah.
Yep. Great. Sorry that this didn't work for you. Now I'm taking that report and I'm fighting the bank tooth and nail because now the house is only worth this much and here's a report of everything that's wrong with it.
So is it the listing agent that's hiring this like third party negotiation company?
9 out of 10 is the listing agent that advises the seller on who they should hire. Okay. My focus in my business is to be the resource for my client. I don't want my client to have to call anyone else. When they have a problem, I don't want them to think of, oh my God, I got a short sale, so let me call this company. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that company might not refer them back to me as the agent. Right?
Yeah.
They've got their own pocket people that they like to work with. If they have a short sale or a problem, I don't care if the fan broke. I want my client to know you can call me because I have a contractor.
Yeah.
Right? So if you get in the practice of being the resource for your client, regardless of what's going on, as you're listening and they say, oh my God, my toilet's stopped. Oh, I got a plumber. Right? I have a friend that's having a hard time with mortgage. I'm certified in short sales. Or, I've got some background in short sales. Is there anything I can do to help? Insert yourself in a way that provides value. So every time they now you've said something, when they think of something, they're going to think of you. Okay? So that's one of my 2 reasons why I don't necessarily push to short sale companies, because I need to be that resource for my client. And I need to ensure that all parties are protected, right? I've said to my buyer when they've had these companies, I was like, okay, we can go to this property, but I need you to know if you go under contract, it doesn't matter what you find wrong, you're still buying this house. That's in their clause. They won't take it out.
And they're paying 3%.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, with this, I still get paid.
Oh, well, okay. That was my next question for you is
I'm not
what
doing this work.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Because I mean, if I were doing all of that work, I would be at least charging 3 or 3.5.
100%. Yeah. I'm charging 3%. Okay? 100%. Okay? And that 3% is from the buyer. It does not come from the seller. I have historically always charged the buyer. Okay? Now, that could be paid through closing cost assistance, which we write into the loan. That could be paid out of pocket expenses. It could be paid in any creative way I can come up with, but it may come from the seller, but it says closing cost assistance that's on top of the purchase price.
You get a lot of pushback from that?
No.
So are you putting in like buyer responsible for?
In the listing, yes. In the MLS, not in the seller's documents.
Right, but in the listing
Yes.
MLS, it says buyer responsible for paying listing agent.
3% negotiation fee, and I have a whole contract for that. Did not.
Yeah.
Well, that's a fee. It's
Yeah,
a 3% negotiation
yeah,
fee,
it's
it's not a
not-
commission. Yeah, it's not a commission. It's a negotiation fee. It's a third-party negotiation fee. It's not a commission. That is
So-
not a commission.
You said you have a contract for that. Does that get uploaded to the MLS under the documents or that's separate?
So some people do that. I do not. I
Okay.
give it to them directly when they say they're going to present it. So 9 out of 10, if I had a show on the property and they haven't called me, call them by the end of the day, a few hours later. Hey, is your client interested in renting a property? Yes, we're working right now. Okay, great. Let me send you the negotiator form. because I have it in the MLS that says there's a negotiation fee, 9 out of 10 they call me and they ask me. I purposely do not upload it into the MLS because I've been accused of taking other people's form when it's my form. Like I had an attorney write it for me, and
Yeah.
so I don't put it up. They actually took my form and said I took theirs.
I was thinking that. I was like, I wouldn't put it up there unless like
Yeah.
upon request
Yes.
because I wouldn't want someone to take it, but that's crazy that
Yeah.
looked at it.
So I stopped putting it out there.
Yeah.
For that particular reason.
So do you hold a title as a a short sale negotiator? Like is there like a certificate or a class that you've done,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah. I am a short sale and foreclosure resource specialist.
Okay.
Yes. I've taken that class. I've taught that class. Yes. It's a fantastic class.
When's the next
Where do you get the class information?
I took it with the board. I can find out when they're giving it again, and then have that person send it out.
I was going to see if we can get your slides today too.
I need your slide.
I already put myself like 10 minutes ago. I'm emailing you after this. So amazing.
Do you want my phone number or my email or both? My phone number is 302-922-0434. And when I tell you I'm a resource, I mean that 100%. If you find yourself in a situation where you don't know what to do, please call me. I will walk you through it, right? There's more than enough business in this entire state that we should be able to support each other.
What's the last four of your iPhone?
0434. And then my email is Shonda, my first name, SHONDA, at Revolution, REVOLUTION, group, GROUP, DE like Delaware.com. Okay. So don't ever think that you're alone in this and you can't figure it out or you're going to fly by the seat of your pants. That's the last thing I want you to do. I don't care what the hour is, if you've got a problem or just need some support, call me. Okay? Seriously, just call me. If you want me to do a phone call with you so you see how it works, I'll do that with you too. Okay? So I'm here to help.
Thank you.
Okay? Why are you repeating? Great. Property information, we want to know what the estimated value is. Property condition, we talked about that a little bit. Occupant status, okay? Short, lenders do not like short sales with renters in them. They won't do them. So if there's a renter in them, you better get creative, okay? I have never been able to get a short sale done with a renter in it. We have, reverted back to, the owner has been dishonest and said, I'm still there. I'm just submitting the documents, right? You're signing off on this. I need you to understand, right? But they will not approve a short sale with a renter in there. So one of the questions, if you're in a renter in there, when's the last time you lived here? Do you still get mail here? All those questions, okay? I can't advise you this, but what my clients have done in the past when they've been in this situation, I promise you this is exactly what I say, is they have opted not to be forthright with the mortgage company and let them believe that they still live there. Because renters cannot be in short sales.
But how would they know?
You have to turn in your tax returns, and if you claim rental income, they're gonna see it. Okay. That's a lot of times they miss that, but they usually will only know if you tell them. So I've had rentals that were like that. They claimed rental income, they turned in their tax returns and said they still live there, and they've never caught it. Okay. So technically, they will only know if you tell them, or if you claim the income and they catch it on the tax return. Okay. So this is when you start to document part of the hardship, and the bank will always want to know how much money they have. Okay. So my spiel to them is, I'm going to need your bank statements for the last 2 months. Okay. That's on here somewhere. I'm skipping all over the place. I'm sorry. And I will tell them, if you have savings, I don't want to know about it. I only want to know your accounts that you're pulling your bills out of. 9 out of 10, They'll say, I only got one, I have no savings. I've had an owner tell me one time, well, I don't want to know. If you have money somewhere else in another account that nobody can know about unless you tell them, don't tell me. Don't tell anyone. Because there's no global way for the banks to do a research to say, does Shonda Kelly have money in Citizens Bank or Chase Bank? Or they won't know if you don't tell them. Okay, so I effectively will tell them, I only want your bank accounts where your money's being pulled out. Okay, so however, if they have transfers coming in and out into other accounts, the bank is going to see that.
Right.
They're going to ask for that. Okay. So what I have told them as I'm looking, because you got to look at this stuff, because you got to learn what they're going to look for, so you catch it before you submit it, and then you look silly, right? So I'm looking at the accounts. I'm like, where are you transferring this $1,000 from? Well, you told me not to tell you about the account. Okay.
That's what I need to know about.
I need you to stop this transfer right now, and we're going to wait 30 days to turn in your bank statements. Okay? Stop the transfer. Put the money in yourself. Okay? Tell me you cash the check and you put it in the account. But stop the transfers or have it put into the account directly. Because the bank is going to, where did this come from? I want to see that account. Where did this come from? I want to see that account. Okay? Employer information, monthly expenses. This is huge. Okay? I don't care what you have to do. Their monthly expenses, along with their income, they need to be right in line, or expenses need to be less or more than their income. Okay. If there's a significant difference, you're not going to get the short sale approved. Okay. We want to know everything. We want to know how much you pay for insurance. We want to know how much your mortgage payment is. We want to know how much you pay for child care. You pay for health insurance, or out of your check. That's an expense. Every expense, and they won't think of any of these things. You want to know everything. Everything. As silly as it sounds. How much do you pay in car maintenance? Do you drive your salesperson? How much do you pay in car maintenance in the course of a year? If they don't know, then, Google it. What's the normal car maintenance for a salesperson in the course of a year? And it'll shoot out a number at you.
Everything. Netflix.
Yes.
The gym. Everything.
Yes. Everything. How much is your internet? How much is your cable? How much is your cell phone? How much you pay in child support? How much do you give over child support? Everything. Everything. This is the part where I tell you I usually do it for them. I collect all the information, and then there's another form. We're going to get to that. It's not in here. I can send you copies of it, but the name is in here that you have to fill out on their behalf. Okay? Well, they should be filling it out. But I put this information in here so they don't mess it up. Because I've gotten back and they're like, we've got $5,000 left for the month. I'm like, how do you? Then why don't you pay mortgage? Why don't you? We don't have. I don't know what are your other expenses? How much do you pay in gas? Right? And some of these forms don't have those lines. There's a box that says other. Gas. Dentist. Because there's a monthly payment for braces. Right? Adding it all. Okay? They don't ask for documentation. They never, I'm not saying to be dishonest. I've never been dishonest. What I'm saying is you list it on here and they account for it. Okay? Hardship information, job loss, medical issues, reduction in income, relocation, divorce, death of borrower, excessive debt. Excessive debt is huge, especially now. Okay? Liens or lawsuits. You got sued, and they're trying to take your house. Or, there's a lien that's coming that you just cannot afford. Okay? And it's going to put you in hardship. Okay? Yeah.
When you say especially now for excessive debt, what do you see to say that?
With the way the industry is, or the people that I've dealt with, they're credit card happy. They just want to spend, right? That's what I mean by debt, personal debt, not the industry debt. But they don't, I find when things go wrong in people's lives, their answer to joy is let me go fix my house. Let me buy a new car. Let me go shopping, right? Jewelry, tons of stuff, right? And before you know it, you done spent yourself happy into excessive debt, right? And you're still not happy. And now you can't pay your mortgage because you got all these credit cards. Or you've got all these credit cards and now they're all in default and your credit is tanked and now they're garnishing your wages or coming after your bank accounts, right? So that's what I mean by excessive debt, right? People that are usually in this situation have excessive debt for divorce. They lost their job, medical issues, they got sick and can't work, right? Reduction in the income, I've only had one situation in all the ones that I've done where they got reduction in income. Relocation. They will approve a short sale and a relocation because you're no longer here and that's the hardship. So that's the only one that I don't worry too much about as far as the income and the expenses. But I still try to get as close as I can, even though I don't need to, because they will try and come after them for the money in the end, or have them contribute towards a short sale. And I don't want that. I had that one time, and I called the seller and I said, they approved the short sale. It was a relocation. He made really good money. This was the height of the market dropping, and he had just bought the house. New construction was tanking, and short sale was like $150,000, like short, that the bank needed to forgive. And they said, we'll do it if he gives us $50,000. So I called, and I already knew the answer, but I have an obligation to provide the information. So I called him and I said, hey, they're giving it to you. They're going to approve it, but you have to provide $50,000. He said, hold on a minute. I said, oh, I mean, that would have been a flat-footed no to me. Yeah, okay, I'll hold on. You nuts. Because now I'm in the mindset of when he comes back to tell him, yeah, I hope you're not considering this. He picks the phone back up and goes, yeah, just check on it. So I chuckled my tail off and said, well, good. Just sitting here trying to figure out how I can convince you not to pay it. And then I went back to him like, no, he doesn't have it. Take it back. That's exactly what I said to the bank. There was no equity in this house at all. The last thing the bank really wants to do is take less in equity, right? They don't want the property back. They don't want it in their inventory. So they will work with you, but they will bully you into getting what they want. You've got to learn to be able to stand up against them, okay? So I called him back and said, I spoke with him, and he says he doesn't have it. And I'm telling you now, if this is where the rubber meets the road, take the house back. He's willing to allow it to go into foreclosure. They approved the short sale. Okay? So once an offer is received, you would have already had all those documents turned in, okay? You've already done that, right? You've already done that. Now we have an offer, okay? So now if the offer is actually reasonable, right, and you know what reasonable is, would your seller accept it? Regardless if it was the bank. If my seller's gonna accept this offer, it's a reasonable offer, it's listed at 300 and it came in at 280, 295, I'm submitting it. I'm getting the documents together, I'm getting the contract together, I'm signing it. You must submit any offer with what they used to call a HUD, which is now called an ALTA. Okay? You must submit every single offer with one of those. They will not consider anything if you don't have a preliminary ALTA attached with the offer. Okay? I personally still use the stupid little HUD form because it just needs the numbers and I can do it myself. I don't have to wait for an attorney to give it to me. Okay? HUD 1.
So it has to actually be the formal or not like the.
Not the real one, it
next
needs to
sheet
be a
from-
preliminary one. ALTA or HUD 1. If you are working with an attorney that can do this information for you really quickly,
Okay,
then praise God, right? Then you call them, you say, hey, here's an offer. This is what they owe. These are, put all the associated fees on there, right? As a seller, put all the bank fee, your attorney fees, whatever the contract terms are, put all that on there and then submit it to the bank for approval. Okay? I personally don't like waiting for people. And the bank doesn't care if it's on a HUD 1 or an ALTA. They don't care. They want to see the bottom number. What are we losing? What are we making? Where can we negotiate? It's always losing. It's never making. They're never making anything. They're not making a dime, right? Because then it's no longer a short sale. Then I'm not submitting anything. Then I'm just putting through and paying. Okay? How much are we losing? They want to see that bottom line and they want to see it on that form.
Or maybe if you're going to that attorney and doing the title search with them to begin with, then you've already established that,
100%.
100%.
100%. 100%. Okay. I have done short sales where the listing agent, the seller has called me and said, I have a buyer. Okay, great. And I'm sitting here and I'm just like, and now I've got to figure out, does that buyer have a realtor? So that's what this slide is. No information about if the buyer has a realtor. Because sometimes buyers contact the listing agents directly themselves, and then you end up really representing both.
I was gonna say, you can do two-sided, right? I mean,
Yep.
Do you prefer that in this situation?
In this situation, yes.
yeah.
In this situation, yes. In a normal situation, I don't like to do that. But in this one, 100%. Because then I can give comfort I can give comfort to the buyer in a way that they understand the process and where we are and how far we are, right? And if I create the same trust with the buyer as I have with the seller, that buyer is going to wait for 4 years. As long as they have the opportunity to wait, they're going to wait, right? This short sales is so much about trust that knowing your job is secondary. Can you establish the trust? Because if you can establish the trust, then doing your job becomes that much easier. Okay? You have to know what you're doing, because you will lose the trust if you don't. Right? If you miss a step, if you create a situation that creates hardship for them, then you've lost it. Okay? So that's what that slide is for. Is the buyer that you're bringing to me, do they have a realtor? Okay? So these are all the documents we talked about. Hardship letter. We did not talk about this one. So they have to create a hardship letter. I usually do that for them too, right? Because a lot of times it'll come in one line that says, I lost my job in 2021 and haven't worked since. That's not enough for the bank, right? It should be, but you need to be a bleeding heart, right? I'm a father of 5. This was the first home we ever bought. We love it here. I lost my job in 2021. I have been unsuccessful, even though I've done multiple interviews and applications to find any new employment. It breaks my heart to lose my forever, what we thought was my forever home, all the stuff. Make it sound great. This is the one part where the lender wants to see, do you care? Am I working with someone that deserves my consideration? And we want to prove it to them. Okay? So you want the hardship letter, which, and again, 9 out of 10, in the conversations I'm having with them, I'm learning so much. I'm asking them all the questions and I'm taking notes. And I'll tell them, I'm going to create a hardship letter for you. I'm going to send it to you. And if it's acceptable, you're just going to sign it. And if it's not, let me know how I need to tweak it. Do I need to add something or do I need to take something out? Right? Based on what you and I talked about today. I want to present you in the best light for the bank to approve this short sale. I want to show them your heart. Okay? 2 recent pay stubs. And when I sit with them to go over the short sale, I have like a little checklist and I'll give it to them and tell them this is the stuff that I need. 2 recent pay stubs, 2 bank statements, tax returns for 2 years, the listing agreement, which needs to get turned into the bank. Alta statement, this is what we talked about before. That's when you have an offer. Appraisal or BPO, the bank's going to do that. You don't do it. Sellers, a lot of times, I want to know, because it doesn't matter what your house is worth. It doesn't matter. And a buyer's appraisal opposed to a seller's appraisal are 2 different things. An appraiser appraises those 2 values in different eyes, right? The seller's appraiser, 9 out of 10, is going to be much higher than the buyer's appraiser is ever going to be. So we never want the seller to do an appraisal, ever, right? The CMA we're doing is what the appraiser would do, looking at it from the buyer's eyesight, okay? Utility bills, you're going to collect the last 2 months of utility bills, right? That helps you to substantiate some of the expenses, right? The bank's not going to ask for the utility bills most times, but that's more for you. The Form 710, Uniform Borrower Assistance Form, these are for the government-backed loans. Any government-backed loan you have is going to require this form, right? I have copies, I'll send that to you. Sitting. It is a standard form and it's going to ask you about those expenses. That's where you're going to document. It's going to be just like the authorization, filling in the information. Do you live there? And if they don't, let them check that off. You don't do it. There's one part in here you need to complete and then sign, right? But if they live there, check it off. their name, their social security number, their address, what was their hardship, when did it start? It's going to ask you all those questions, right? You should have that information based on the conversations you have, right? Fill it out, put in their expenses, send it to them, and let them sign it, okay? If you're uncomfortable with that, send it to them, let them fill it out, but you've got to review it. If it's wrong, send it back. What other expenses you have? Because this shows you got $3,000 left at the end of the month. Your mortgage is $700. The bank is going to say, why can't you pay your mortgage? There has to be other expenses. And then start naming some. Okay? Then send it back and let them fill it out. Okay? Form 4506T. This is the tax form. The bank is 100% going to want this because what has happened in times past is sellers have fraudulently redone their taxes or adjusted their taxes to numbers that they actually didn't file. So they 100% will take this form 4506T and ask for the taxes directly from the IRS, right? This form have them sign, but do not have them dated, right? Because it's only good for a certain period of time. So when you send it in, make a copy of it, date it. If you got a short sale that's a year old, this form is no longer any good. And the one thing I hate doing is having my sellers redo forms. So 9 out of 10, I have them fill everything out and don't date anything. And then I just make copies and then date them for when I'm sending them into the bank. Okay?
What if they haven't filed their taxes?
You're going to get the last 2 years of the taxes that they did. And then you're going to write a letter of explanation that says, they're going to write a letter of explanation as to why they haven't filed the taxes in the last year, or the last 2 current years. Okay? But you're going to submit the last 2 that they did file with a letter of explanation. That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.